Um, I'm going to share with you a letter that Paramahansa Yogananda wrote to a disciple. We don't quite know who he wrote this to, but we can take it that he wrote it to all of us because the message doesn't really change. So this is how he starts. Divine Mother sent me to plot you out. Divine Mother sent me to pilot you out of the clouds of your mind. You see, all the masters that come to earth, they are sent here by God, by Divine Mother, however you want to call it, by that one intelligence that operates in this world. And we are told that the great masters come into this world again and again, and they come whenever there is a need. In the words of Krishna, they come when virtue declines and vice predominates. And so he says, Divine Mother sent me to pilot you out of the clouds of your mind. I mean, what could even clouds of our minds be, you know? We are always so much living in our own heads, often subconscious mind. And as long as we are living in that subconscious mind, we're not seeing clearly. Our awareness is very, very small. It's like there's a cloud there. So a guru is sent into the world to get us out of that cloudy mental state. And then he says, everybody's difficulty is different, and he or she has to win that test of karma and Divine Mother. Overcome all by constant inward calling on God and utmost devotion in words, thoughts, action, and obedience to the Guru. Now, often I find that in the times, in the culture that we live in, this concept of obedience to the Guru can cause a little bit of problem for many of us. Because there's so much emphasis on, I should be able to do whatever I want to do, and nobody should impose on my free will. And what's kind of important to understand is who actually a guru is, and what is the role of a guru. Basically, a guru has no ego and there's no sense of what I want for me. A guru comes to earth purely for the purpose of helping us. The things that we want for ourselves are not necessarily the best for us. We know this. You know, you think of a little child. They could often if they could get away not eating their meal and just have the pudding, they would. But as a parent, as an adult, you know that that's not what's right for the child. And so you say that, oh no, you must eat your dinner first and then you can have your pudding. And so likewise, the Guru usually knows what is best for us. And therefore, obedience to the Guru actually frees us rather than chains us. The more we give in to our own personal likes and dislikes, the more we are getting entangled in the ego. And more we are creating karma, as in it brings us consequences. Whereas obedience to the Guru actually frees us. Which then implies, how do you obey the Guru when the Guru's not there, you know, in the human body to tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And this is where attunement comes in. I might talk a little bit about attunement a little bit later. But then he says, your troubles I do not mind. I will never give up my job about you. As in, when we accept a guru, he takes responsibility for us. He will never impose himself on us. If we don't want him, he will stay away, keep his distance from us. But maybe he doesn't ever take his eyes off us. In here, in the chapter Materializing a Palace in the Himalayas, Babaji says to Lahiri Mahashaya up in the Himalayan mountains, he says, I've watched over you like a mother bird guarding her young. That's what a guru does. I just want to read that little piece about what Babaji says to Lahiri Mahashaya. For more than 3 decades, I have waited for you here. 3 decades. As in, Lahiri Mahashaya was 30 years old when Babaji called him to the Himalayan mountains. And how did he call him? Lahiri Mahashaya was working as an accountant for the government, and he was told that he had to relocate to this place called Ranikhet, which is in the foothill of the Himalayan mountains. So, and Babaji says to Lahiri Mahashaya, it was I who silently suggested to the mind of your superior officer that you be transferred to Ranikhet. So we think that we are making all these sort of things happen, my employer's making this happen, but really there's often another hand in all of this. So Babaji put it in the mind of his boss that this man needs to be transferred to another station. So Babaji says, I've waited for you for 3 decades to return to me. His voice rang with celestial love. I mean, we all have experienced love in our lives, whether it's love for a romantic partner, love for our children, love for our nieces and nephews. So, I mean, what would, celestial love be like? You can kind of multiply that, 100,000 times the love that a guru has for the disciple. And then he says, you slipped away and vanished into the tumultuous waves of the life beyond death. The magic wand of your karma touched you and you were gone. Though you lost sight of me, never did I lose sight of you. I mean, that's the guru. I pursued you over the luminescent astral sea where the glorious angels sail. So like Lahiri Mahashaya dies, as in a previous incarnation, he's now in the astral world, and Babaji is still keeping an eye on him. Through gloom, storm, upheaval, and light, I followed you like a mother bird guarding her young. As you lived out your human term of womb life in the mother's womb and emerged a babe, my eye was ever on you. When you covered your tiny form in the lotus posture under the Nadia sends in your childhood, I was invisibly present. Patiently, month after month, year after year, I have watched over you, waiting for this perfect day. So that's what a guru is like. We think that we have suddenly come to want a guru, to desire a guru in our life, but really it's the guru that has led our footsteps up to the point that we are at today. I was just, Veda and I were sitting at the table this afternoon, and we were stripping the copper out of this electrical wire because she wanted to do some experimentation with it, and the only way we could get copper was to kind of strip a wire. And she asked me some questions that were actually quite deep, like, how did you come to this path? And I said, well, a lot of people come to this path after reading the autobiography of a yogi. But when I read the autobiography of a yogi, I was only a first-year student at university, and my comprehension probably wasn't that great. With the best of comprehension, a lot of people cannot understand what's in this book. And so, and at that time, English was my second language. I can't say that anymore. Um, and so when I read this book, I honestly do not know how much of it I understood, nor do I have any recollection of it making any impression on me. Maybe I did understand it, and that's why I read the whole thing. I don't know. I don't have any memory of it. And then I found a meditation group in Palmerston North, which happened to be a meditation group based on these teachings. But even then, I did not put two and two together. In fact, all these people were very foreign to me. But I continued going to that meditation group without really knowing what it was all about. And then, some 8 months down the track of going to this meditation group, people there said to me, so what lesson are you on? And I was thinking, what are you asking me? What is these lessons all about? And they said, don't you know that you can study what Paramahansa Yogananda taught? I said, tell me more. So then they gave me a bit more information, and at that point I took the lessons. And that meditation group was such where nobody really talked. You just go, you meditate, and you leave. So it's not surprising that it took me that long to figure out that there was more to this meditation group than what I was seeing. So then at that point, I started studying the lessons, which used to come in the airmail envelope every 2 weeks. This is like, pre-internet days, or if internet was there, it was still very early stages. And after some years, I took Kriya. I went to America to take Kriya Yoga. And even at that point, I had no comprehension of what a guru-disciple relationship was all about. And I remember being at that convocation, about 3,000-4,000 people were there from all around the world, in Los Angeles, in this hotel called Bonaventure Hotel, which has got huge rooms, to cater this many people. And I just thought it was so strange that people, what to me at the time seemed like people were worshipping Yogananda. I was so uncomfortable about my whole experience like, really? What is this all about? And this is about 6-7 years into going to this meditation, studying the lessons. Isn't like I still didn't have any comprehension of what I was doing. And so all I can, what I said to Veda when she asked me this question about, how I found it, and then she carried on with how come I have stayed and, not shifted to anything else. And I actually don't have any logical answer to that. I can't even say that, because I liked the path so much, or nothing like that. All I can say is, Yogananda held me and he never let me go. And so it's kind of a default. And the path came to me at a time when I got kicked out from another path. I think I have told some of you that story before, I was going to this meditation group once again. This was when I lived in Palmerston North. And I had been going to it for not very long. My memory of it seems to suggest that it was just a few months. And the teacher rang me one day, and he said that I needed to send my photo to the guru because that guru was still living at the time. This was a different lineage. The guru was still living at the time. Now he's passed. And he used to live in New York. And I knew nothing. I was still in my early 20s. I knew nothing about a guru. All I had heard of guru is all the rogue gurus that are around who want your money and who get you into trouble. And so I said to him, I said, no, I can't do this. I don't want to send my photo to the guru. I don't need a guru. I don't want a guru. And he must have tried to explain to me. I don't have much recollection of the conversation now, but it ended. I still remember the feeling when the conversation ended, because he said, well, you can't come anymore. I thought, oh, and that was the joy of our lives. Arun and I, we both used to go to it. And just like, many of you look forward to coming on a Wednesday to this gathering, and Arun and I used to enjoy going each week. And then here we are told that we can't come anymore because we wouldn't accept the guru. But straight after that, we found this other meditation group that was being held at Graham Odering's place in Palmerston North. He started the Odering's Nurseries. I just spoke to him actually yesterday. He's told me that he's 91 years old, and he feels really happy that we are gathering here in this way, and that the work is still carrying on. And all he wants now is to put more energy into practicing these teachings. So he has somebody who comes to his place, and they read to him because his eyesight's not good anymore, but he still wants to study the lessons. So we are not choosing our guru. The guru is choosing us. And if we don't have the comprehension, we're not intelligent enough to kind of figure out what all this is about, we don't need to worry about any of that. Because if Yogananda is our guru, you can trust that he will hold your hand. If he is not your guru, you can trust that he will pass you on to somebody else when the time is right. Just like the story of Mr. Dickinson in this book, when Mr. Dickinson is asking Swami Vivekananda that he wanted Swami Vivekananda to be his guru, And Swami Vivekananda says, no, your guru will come and he will give you a silver cup. And sure enough, many years later though, um, Paramahansa Yogananda gives Mr. Dickinson a silver cup. This is after he had been his disciple for many years. So we just have to trust that the right guru will come. And often the guru is much closer than we realize. Often, I've heard people say, oh, I want to go to India because I need to find a guru. I mean, how do you find a guru when you go to India? I mean, Shelley's been to India. I've been to India. Like, where would you go,
Master thought he had to go to the Himalayas, didn't he?
Exactly. And Yogananda actually tried to make a flight to the Himalayas several times, only to find that his guru was about, 10, 20 kilometers just from where he was living. So often, our guru is much closer than we realize. In fact, people used to, when Paramahansa Yogananda was living at Mount Washington in America, as in that's the place where he used to live and that's where he had all the monks and nuns live. People used to come as though it was a hotel, check in, check out. They didn't realize that here was a man of God realization who, if you open your heart to him, he could take you all the way to self-realization. I'm actually reading, I've just finished reading a book called Driving Jesus to Little Rock. Has anybody come across that book at all? I really recommend it. It's a fiction. It's a fiction, and I haven't laughed so much while reading a fiction. It's just absolutely hilarious and very light-hearted. Sometimes we can get very serious on the spiritual path, and just reading something like that is quite amazing. I won't tell you the whole story in case you do feel like reading it. I don't want to kind of spoil the plot for you. But basically, the story is about this man. The narrator of the story is a author, and he has been asked to give a presentation on one of his books that he has written. And the book that he has written is called Breakfast with Buddha. And actually, I'm reading that book right now, Breakfast with Buddha. And so a church has invited him to give a presentation on this book. And the place, so this is happening in America, and it would be a short plane trip from this narrator's home to this church where he's to give a talk. But he decides that he wants to drive, because driving would just give him some self-time and he can think about it, enjoy the scenery while those of us who meditate and like our own company, we can kind of relate to that yes, driving by yourself in the car can be quite pleasurable. You enjoy driving from Rotorua, Julian? Yeah. And he was still on his home stretch, and he sees a hitchhiker. And he likes to give rides, he quickly makes an assessment that, yeah, this person seems pretty okay. And so he stops the car, and this hitchhiker has a backpack and gets into the car in the passenger seat. And So then he introduces himself, says, I'm Eddie, and then, expecting the other person to introduce himself. And the other person says, I'm Jesus, Jesus the Christ. and and then, oh, so where are you going? And he says that he's going to Little Rock. Little Rock is the place where this man is also going. And imagine, this is like a 5-day trip. When you give a hitchhiker a ride, you'd think that they're just going like, just a little out there. And he says that I'm going to this place. Ah, what are you doing there? Oh, I'm going to this talk that Eddie is giving on this book called Breakfast with Buddha. And this guy thought, is somebody stalking me? Somebody knows that, this is what I'm going to be doing. And then, anyway, this guy goes through lots of, the narrator goes through lots of, emotions as he gives a ride to this Jesus. So in the beginning, when you give a hitchhiker a ride, like the person giving the ride is the one in power. Because you've got the wheels, you giving the other person a ride, and you kind of assume that the other person hasn't got the means to travel, and so you doing them a favor. But then he starts noticing that things begin to turn. The other person becomes quite demanding. And in one of the scenes, he stops to grab a hot drink and something to eat. And he asks this man who calls himself Jesus what he wants. And Jesus says that I'll have a tea. And so this guy goes and he buys Jesus a tea. And Jesus didn't want to get out of the car. And he's very concerned that he's got his laptop, all his stuff in the car, and what if this hitchhiker, takes off with all his stuff? Anyway, so he kind of eventually trusts, goes and buys this tea for Jesus, coffee for himself, and some cinnamon rolls, and he brings this to the car, and at that point Jesus changes his mind. He says, I want the coffee. And he thought, now I just can't handle this anymore. I've bought this coffee for myself, and now he wants what I've bought for myself. And so, anyway, he does end up giving Jesus his coffee and while he drinks his tea. And then he just can't wait to get rid of Jesus. And so I think at one point, basically, they part ways. He just can't handle Jesus at all. And he parts ways, and he's really happy driving by himself. He can listen to the, talk radio and all of that. And then he comes up to New York, and he decides that he wants a little bit of a massage. So he goes into this massage parlor, has a massage, and as he's coming out, he sees Jesus there. And Jesus is paying for a massage at the counter, because Jesus decides that he wants to have a massage. Sounds like I'm telling you a lot of the story.
This is a tangent.
Just a little detour. And so Jesus just has paid. He's about to have a massage. And a massage can take a good 50 minutes or so. And Jesus says to this man, wait for me. And so once again, Jesus is back in the car, and then with him, and Jesus gives him an assignment to do. He says, I want you're an author, I want you to write about the gap years. He says, don't you think there's something really peculiar in the Bible? And first this guy says, No. I mean, he was brought up as a Catholic, for the first 18 years of his life, he used to go to the Catholic Church. I think some of you will really enjoy this book. um, I just lost my train of thought. Where was I?
The assignment.
Oh, the assignment. So Jesus says, don't you think there's something really peculiar about the Bible? And this guy thinks that, no, what do you think it is? And Jesus says, that it talks a little bit about my early life. Then it talks about my late part of the life, just before crucifixion and crucifixion, but nothing in between. He says, can you write about those years? And this guy's kind of like, he's still not sure who this man is and whether he really is Jesus. But basically, I'm not going to tell you any more about this book. But basically, when a guru, when an avatar comes into this world, they don't come with a halo over their head where you will say, oh, that man is a guru, he's the Buddha, he's Jesus. No, they look like ordinary people doing ordinary things. They say wise things as well, but most people, unless the guru wants, or unless your heart is open, you will not recognize the guru. You will even have fights with the guru. You will kick him out of your car while he's traveling with you. It's such a hilarious book. So they basically just take part in the human drama. And I'm trying to go back to where I started. I've kind of done a lot of detours. I was reading this letter of Paramahansa Yogananda. You can read that book if you want to get the rest of the story. Honestly, it is so funny. But not just funny, but what it did for me was start kind of thinking in terms of how you imagine the guru. Because one of the questions this man is asked during his presentation by a woman who's quite annoyed by this person who's proposes to know Jesus, like, what makes you think that, you can say what this man is like? I'm thinking whether I'm mixing two books up because I've read two very kind of back to back. So this man says, what gives him the authority? He says, we all have a Jesus of our imagination. We all have a Buddha of our imagination. We all have a Moses of our imagination, as in we are all living in a time where we have not met these people. And all we can go by is the paintings that the artists have done. And some of these paintings that the artists have done, they too haven't met these great masters. So they are presenting us with their artwork using their imagination. And he says, I am a storyteller. So my piece of art is to imagine Jesus in the form of a story. And likewise, we will all have a Yogananda of our imagination. And one person's imagination does not make the other person's imagination, if it's different, to be wrong. A guru will come to us in whatever way we imagine that relationship to be. And that's why when we pray, we say Father, Mother, Friend, Beloved, God. Like It could be any of this. If you don't like the concept of God, then it could be friend. It could be a beloved. It could be anything that you want it to be. Somewhere in the book it says that God has to be a genius because he has to appear to each person in the way that that person imagines him to be. So say if you're a Christian, you believe in Jesus, when you might get dreams of Jesus. When you die or have a near-death experience and you're going through that tunnel of light, you might have Jesus appear to you. If you're a devotee of Yogananda, you will see Yogananda appear to you. Huh? That's right. I think some of you know I had this dream of Yogananda on a bus at this time when my daughter lost her pendant. And it took me a day or two to put this two and two together. But the place where she found the pendant was actually at a bus stop. And I had this dream before she actually lost the pendant, just a day before. And Yogananda was looking out of the bus, his face absolutely radiant and smiling at me, catching my attention. And I was so excited in this dream that I was going like that. And when I woke up, I just kept telling Arun, I said, you know what? Yogananda came to me. He was dressed in his bright orange and he was looking so radiant. Only to find a day later that he was trying to tell me that the lost pendant had something to do with the bus stop or the bus. So God appears to us, he gives us messages in ways that we will recognize. That does not mean that everybody should have Yogananda as their guru because he's the only one. Go back to this. Your troubles I do not mind. I will never give up my job about you. I'm thinking I'm not going to finish this letter because we've got this discipleship prayer and vow to do. But maybe I will finish reading this next week because I think it is quite, it's nice, it's worth reading and worth explaining. If I hadn't talked too much, I would have been able to finish it. But that's what Wednesdays are about. We don't have any strict timeline that we have to go by. And it works for me, and I just hope that it works for you. If it doesn't, you'll just have to bear with me.